Okay, I'll call the meeting to order at 5 o'clock. So I see, Caroline's here and Sarah. We have Stephen and Casey and myself, Joy, who's all present. Okay, any public comment? Thank you. Okay. School dude reports.
I apologize for getting these out a little bit later than I had hoped, but I hope you had a minute. If you want to take some time now to go through them, that's fine too, and I can pull them up on the screen.
Yeah, I can through them.
I did not. I was hoping, Joy, do you mind if Casey pulls them up, Joy? I didn't even, I wasn't, if they came today, I didn't see my emails today.
Yeah, I had off today. That was the only reason I was able to do it so quickly. I think as long as we don't have pipe cleaner incidents, we'll be good. With outlets, that's important.
Oh, yes. I'm trying to find my screen here.
The only, well, you're pulling it up, but the only question I had was, trying to find the number. It's right here. 6884 is the number.
Is it one that's new or closed?
It's closed.
Okay.
Yeah, it's in the 9-page. Yeah, the only thing, Carolyn, is the first one's 9 pages, the other one's only 2, but
okay. So 6, what did you say?
6884. Just about the door at the high school.
Mm-hmm. Is that from 109?
Yeah, I just want to go on record and make sure that, because it's more of a operational procedural concern, that he put in his notes. Mr. Belanda told me the middle exit door was not locking. I found the door closer needed adjustment, made necessary adjustments, tested door several times, and each time it locked properly. So I made Justin, the security guard, aware and told him to report any issue moving forward. I just hope that, I hope our security goes to the doors periodically throughout the day. I know I'll hear it on my classroom door, like somebody's wiggling the handle, just to make sure we're constantly doing those checks. It's not really, it's more just, a procedural or operational.
Yeah, that's a fair point, Joy. This has been, yes, I think security, certainly that is part of their routine, checks that they do. I've also communicated just in the last month or so, just a reminder to all of our custodial staff that part of just normal operations and what they do is they walk by an exit door, just give it a tug, make sure it's closed. That should just be part of routine. Don't walk by a door without ensuring that it's latched properly and closed. So that is a message that is communicated with staff.
Yeah, that's great, because that made me think that that's what happened, was he was maybe checking or whatnot. So that was really the only thing. And I laughed at the pipe cleaner thing.
Yeah.
Would it make sense to maybe put a sign on that particular door if it's something that's becoming an issue, just to kind of bring it to everyone to make sure that's because if it's a door that continues to have an issue, maybe just to bring it, because there's a lot of doors, just to kind of make sure that people are focusing a little bit more on that one in particular.
Yeah, that's true.
So great question, Sarah. And it looks like this door, there was an adjustment that was needed to be made on the door closer, that sort of arm on the top of the door. They did make an adjustment to it, and it has corrected that issue. So if it does come up again, maybe it's something we need to look further at, but it looks like it has been corrected at this time.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Of course.
So maybe because of time, I don't know, if maybe you can just, if you have any questions, Caroline, just send them to the group, and then Casey can speak to them if you have any
Sure.
questions.
Sure. I mean, I can go through these later, either this evening or tomorrow on my own and follow up if I have any other questions. Apologies, I didn't get a chance to go through them.
No, that's my fault. They were sent out today, which is not ideal.
And any Casey that you want to speak to for the group? I mean,
not really. I will speak to some maintenance items, and they probably are in the school dudes. Sometimes the maintenance items don't always get put into school dude. It's usually only if it becomes like a mechanical issue that needs to be addressed by one of our maintenance mechanics. But I'll touch on sort of the larger themed maintenance items that we've been dealing with this month in the maintenance update.
okay.
Okay, so we'll move on to new business, maintenance updates.
Okay. All right. So I started doing weekly building walks with the head custodian and sometimes Dan if he's in the district, but otherwise it would be Joe DeGrande who is sort of filling in for the facility supervisor responsibilities while Dan is intermittently out. So every week we go through, we look at the custodial request forms that have come in from staff. That's like the first stop for a maintenance request is to submit a Google form that gets then loaded into a response document. And then from there, either it will be addressed by the custodial staff or it would be entered into School Dude for like a larger, either a vendor would have to come on site to make the repair or our maintenance staff would do the fix. So every week I'm going through all of those items with the head custodians and Joe. And then we're just walking around the building just to like put eyes on some of the larger things that are that have been coming up. So I'll just hit on, I won't speak so much on the CLES because CLES has its own item under new business. We'll go through some of the larger themes in that building later on in the agenda. But some smaller items that have come up at CLES is water bottle fillers were shutting off intermittently, and so they were being reset. But the fix there is it's to change all of the filters. So that is if it's not complete, it's at least underway because the PO was just approved, I think, for all those filters. So those will be all changed out. We had some ceiling tiles in one of the kindergarten classrooms that were sort of bowing in the center, and it was just a misalignment of the grids that holds the tiles in place. So those have been adjusted. There was an issue with a parking lot light that was out. So Hanch Electric came out and made that repair. Same day we had an issue, actually the day after a similar issue at the high school, they made that repair in the parking lot light as well. Cafeteria tables. So we've noticed that all the bolts that hold on the seats for all of the tables in both cafeterias are easily becoming loosened. We don't know if it was an issue from the get-go of them never being properly tightened, but we have lost quite a few. The manufacturer of the tables have sent us a hefty supply of replacements, and as of yesterday, all of the bolts for the tables in the upper cafeteria have been either replaced and or secured. So that cafeteria is done, and now we're working on the lower cafeteria to make sure that they're all secured as well. Kind of a silly little thing, but could be problematic if we start losing, kids start sitting on chairs that end up disappearing. So we're addressing that as we go. Also, safety screws in bathroom stalls. Oh, Caroline?
Sorry, just a quick question on that. Because I'm not shocked because the little kids wiggle around a lot. Are they going to be put on like a PM schedule now that we know that that's a risk?
Exactly. They'll have to be, yes, they will be monitored and checked probably quarterly, right? Just to make sure that they're secure and being held together as we intend. Yes.
Okay.
Safety screws in bathroom stalls that we're finding that they're not being, not holding up as well as we'd like either. And then once something becomes loose, a kid naturally wants to make it a little looser. But repairs and replacements of all those bolts and screws in all the bathroom stalls is also underway. And then those are sort of the smaller things at CLES. We'll talk about the other larger things later on, as I said. At the high school, we had, as you know, we have a spend down plan in our cafeteria fund. And part of that plan is to redo, as you recall, last year, we opened up the deli section and, modified the serving area where I forget what it's called now, but it's sort of like the Chipotle area, I call it, modified that. And so those renovations are complete. Now the final renovation is to upgrade the main serving line at the high school. And so we did have vendors come out to give us quotes on that. We have an electrical quote underway. Plumbing can be done in-house for any changes that we need, but we want to upgrade all of the equipment there and make it a smoother, more efficient serving line, and upgrade the equipment so that we can offer different options too for lunch. And so that's all underway. I have the requisitions out in my workflow to get approved, and then that work can be underway soon. So that'll be a nice upgrade to that area. Let's see, filters for all the unit vents in both the high school and the middle school will be replaced over spring break. We have plenty of filters in stock to complete all of those. Auditorium lighting, there were some lights that were out on the stair lighting in the auditorium, and also one light as you enter the main entrance of the auditorium. The light worked, but you had to flip a breaker to get that area of lights working instead of just a nice little light switch that is easier to access. It's a difficult replacement because they're so high up and we have to get, different equipment to change them out. But we did change out that one top hat light bulb in the entryway. So there's much better lighting there, and the lights on the stairways have been replaced as well. Let's see what else. That's about it for BHS. With Skinner, we had some clogged urinals. Those we did get Arco Router out to unclog those. We had a leak in the Dean of Students office. That has been dried out. We had a dehumidifier running in there for some time. We opened up the ceiling tiles, made sure it was all dried out, and that seems to be improved. There's some issues with the fire alarm panel. Johnson Controls was out yesterday to make those needed repairs, and so that is complete. And then we had a locksmith out. There was an issue with the gym doors and the tech ed door. And so Accurate Lock came out to address those locking issues, and that's about it for the high school for the daily maintenance stuff. Larger capital next. Any questions on those?
No. Okay, so capital updates.
All right, so I'm going to share the screen. All right, so just want to share this with you. This is, and I don't know, can you see it? Is it too small? A little better. This is just what we use to track all of our capital projects throughout the district. Mr. Parisi and I sat with Mr. Dunn and Mrs. Marion on Tuesday to give the quarterly update of all the capital projects. And so we just walked through this entire spreadsheet basically. And so what you see is all of our capital projects that are either still open. Some of them date back to 2021-22 for some security capital funds that we have been drawing down, and there's about $30,000 left in that. up until the last couple of request years where, we had significant requests for roofs and boilers and things like that. So I'll just go down really briefly and stop me if you have questions, but just to give you all the updates on where we are on all of these. And see some of these, this is for both cash capital and bonded capital. I also have projects that we intend to use the DRIP funding for in this as well. And so the first one, the weight room, anything in blue, you see in blue is completely finished and complete. Yes, Caroline.
There's a spider on my window. Quick question. The cash versus bonded, does that mean the cash comes out of our operational budget, or is it just capital cash still coming out of a different budget?
Great question. It's not the Board of Ed operating budget. It's the town capital reserve.
Okay. So this just means they're pulling out of that fund in cash, or it's being bonded.
Yeah. I think it's the capital non-recurring fund that the town would pull that from, or
Okay.
Otherwise, yes, bonded, exactly.
Okay, thanks.
Of course. So the weight room, that was done. The upgrade of camera system servers, that was done this past summer. As you know, we were able to purchase the floor scrubber and the outdoor scoreboard for BHS. Those were off-cycle approved capital items that we requested last fall. And the scoreboard is complete. Oh, and then it's gonna, hold on, I'll show you the, and it looks great. If I can, not gonna show me, oh, here it is. So it looks similar, but it's working importantly. So there it is.
Yay.
Running, yep, and so that'll be great for the spring sports season. So that's
Awesome.
Good news. All right, back to this. All right, and then items that are and then the items that are in progress. So anything here in green, these are all projects that are in some level of being worked on. The security, as I said, this is a bonded project from 2021-22. Most of that has been spent down. There's still remaining $30,000 in that project, and Mr. Freesty and I will be talking about recommendations for spending on that later on the agenda. There is also some cash capital remaining from the 2023-24 restroom project. So there's $27,682 remaining there, plus new monies of almost $125,000. So we do have about $152,000 for restroom renovations, which we intend to use over the summer. And we've shared this a couple different places, but I'll just share again here. So the restrooms, obviously we have reopened several more restrooms at the high school in the last month or so. And the 3 in particular that needed that deep clean, while they are functioning and they're fine, they do need some TLC and some renovations. So we have earmarked those as the first 3 that we would propose renovations for. I'm hopeful that with this funding we'll be able to accomplish that, but we will be putting out an RFP for those projects to get those done this summer. The engineering design for heating and cooling at the high school. As you recall, we started with just looking at cooling, adding air conditioning to that building in areas that it doesn't have. But after my first heating season here, I thought, geez, I think we might want to look at the whole system. And so we are where that is right now. We originally put out an RFP for a comprehensive project. The bids we received in were such a wide spanning range, anywhere from $120,000 to $1.3 million, that was our indication that we need to redo the RFP with more specificity so that we get more competitive bids that we can compare apples to apples. And so we have reached out to representatives of the MBC, Paul Checco and Josh Flowers. Mr. Freese and I had a conversation with them. Paul sent me a sample RFP that another district had used for a similar project. I took that, reworked what we had, sort of narrowed the scope of this project to just the phase 1, which would be the evaluation and assessment of the existing system, and then just the schematic design plan to redo the entire HVAC infrastructure. And we've looked at that internally as a group, and I sent that off to Paul and Josh Flowers and the NBC last night. So just waiting on feedback on those specs, and hopefully, we'll take any feedback that they have to offer and then get that released.
What's our lead time on that? What do we usually tell vendors to get back to us? Is it like 30 days or?
I think the original RFP we had out for about 4 weeks. We probably will, because we'll do a mandatory walkthrough for this. It is a pretty comprehensive assessment that they have to do. So I would say a month, that we would have it out there.
Okay.
All right. So the next section is the roofs, and we did secure funding for the library roof and this section of classrooms where the language lab is. We did secure that funding going back from 2024-25 and then again last year. When we did secure the initial round of funding, we did put out an RFP in October of 2024 for that library roof plan. We had awarded that bid and then sort of paused because there was a desire on the town's part, and I fully support and agree, to seek non-priority grant reimbursement from the state of Connecticut for these projects. And so we paused. We had to get some resolutions adopted by the Board of Selectmen to appoint the NBC to oversee that project. That is a requirement by the state of Connecticut in order to apply for the grant reimbursement. And so we paused that first time in August, and that's April of 25. And then we were going to get rolling again, and then the solar project was introduced. And so then that changed the scope, because then we were going to increase the scope of Wisconsin to include, the majority of roofs in that building. And so that's sort of where we are now. We have awarded the contract for the engineering design for the roofs to a vendor. We are working on finalizing the contract agreement with them. And so that's where we are with that. But we are moving forward. I don't know how much is going to get done before the summer comes to a close. But I will say my first fall here is when we did the roof over the guidance wing at the high school. And so that work was being done while school was in session. So, it's not necessarily a non-starter. These roofing companies are familiar working with schools, and, they do work on roofs when school is in session. So we'll have to just see about the timing of that. But that one is underway.
So is the new part of the update, Casey, that we've sent out for a new RFP? I mean,
so we don't have there's no RFP out there right now. We have.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. Yeah, sorry, I misspoke actually. So the new part of this update is that we've awarded the design work to somebody finally, right? Because we had been waiting on that for a couple months, I think, right?
Correct.
Okay, all right.
Yep.
Thanks.
So that's been awarded. We're working on the details of that agreement. And then they can have the green light to begin the engineering design work. And then we will put out to bid to get contractors in to do the installation of the
actual work. Okay. What's their lead time on the design work?
It's a lot of roofs, so it's gonna be a while. I don't know. I just asked actually Paul Checo what he thought on what's a reasonable, dates that we can give, because that's the one thing we're trying to iron out in the contract. What are reasonable milestones for a project of that magnitude? And so that's one of the details that we're working on right now.
Okay.
I know. I wish I had the answer. I don't do roofs for a living, so I'm not really sure. I don't want to give you just a number.
No, it's okay. Right? I'm a project manager, so I will always ask what the dates are on the projects.
Yeah. You might have a better idea of what the dates should be if you're
I have some ideas.
There you go. Okay, so these next few items here, and actually these are in progress now because we do have RFPs that are ready to go out or are out. So the oil tank at the high school, I do have a draft. Why did it do that? I have a draft RFP that I've shared with our team internally for that initial feedback. Once I hear back from everybody here internally, then I'm going to share it again with, Paul and the NBC to just get any feedback there. They've been very supportive and, helpful in saying we're here as a resource, even if they're not appointed to a project, they know so much more about all of these designs and these projects than I would. And so they've been very, very helpful, a helpful resource. So I appreciate that. So once we get all that buttoned up and all the specs of that design, bid, build project for the oil tank, then that RFP will be released as well.
And I'm sorry, is that at the high school or the middle school?
It's at both. So the high school, the only difference between the two, the RFP is for both schools. The only difference is that the funding for the high school project has been secured. That was from 24-25. The funding for the Miscellaneous oil tank is in this current year, like what's going to be going out to referendum in May.
The 26-27 budget.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. And then this last one that's in progress is the smart sensors. So we have a RFP that has been released. We had a optional walkthrough for vendors on Monday, I believe. One vendor showed up, but we are aware of 2 vendors in total, at least at a minimum, that will be bidding on this. And so bids are due back on Monday. So we'll have an update maybe for the board meeting, but if not, certainly for the next facilities meeting.
And that's to cover everywhere, not just the bathrooms, but we had mentioned like locker rooms and everything too. Is that true or?
So we did the bid based on a minimum. We asked for pricing for a minimum of 8, which is what we need for bathrooms. And then another pricing at 12, 16,
okay.
24,
yeah,
right?
So tiered pricing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we'll see what we can do.
Okay.
Okay, this is, now we get at red is these are projects that are not started for one reason or another. Some of them are on hold, as a matter of fact. So there's no plan on starting them until something else happens, right? Those would be anything related, these ones that I'm highlighting here. These are all related to the HVAC system. So I certainly don't want to replace HVAC components on a system that we may be overhauling in large order, a year from now. So we're just sort of on pause on those. These 2 here, these are for ceiling tiles. We have the funding for those. Once the roof replacements are done, we will get those ceiling tiles, ordered and installed. We don't want to put new ceiling tiles, under a roof that we know has leaks. And so we're just waiting for, we'll replace them as the sections of roof gets replaced. This one here, the vestibule and hall flooring, this we plan on using drip funds for. And that's just to all the entryways at the high school and the main entryway at Miscellaneous. The tiles are coming up. We have to put mats over large sections in order to cover up, cracked tiles and concrete showing. And so we just thought a good use of these funds would be to take all of those entryways at the high school and just do a nice like epoxy coating, right? It's very, very durable. We can do school colors. It can look clean. It would just be a nice way to just come into the building into a nice fresh space. So we've allocated $20,000 for that, for those projects at BHS. And then these.
That one you're showing red. So are we not starting that, or
we don't have the funds yet from the state. So
okay.
That's the only reason it's not started. We will do an RFP for that. I haven't started drafting the RFP, so that's why it's not started.
Okay.
But it will be. The plan is to do it over the summer. We will have the funds from the state by June 30th. And so once we have that, we'll get I'm hoping to get, and this sheet shows you the RFPs that we have to do for all these projects. I will hopefully get through most of these in the next 2 weeks. But it hasn't already.
Do we want to just, I know it's being picky, but in the notes for that one, do we want to just say we'll start after June 30th?
I'm likely going to start it before June 30th. Because I want to have bids and I want to secure it for like a July, August at the latest.
Okay.
Project.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
Yeah. This is like that one's brand new. There's not, we know what we're doing with it.
Great. I think that'll be really nice.
Good. This one, architectural services. This is, if you recall, this is going back to 2 years ago when the building conditions report from Mark Zakubo was first being, looked at, and we developed the 10-year capital plan, which includes, window replacements, door replacements. And the thinking here was that while we're making investments and necessary needed upgrades to infrastructure and, the envelope of the building, can we do it in a way, can we have a plan to do it in a way that also adds more natural light, that makes the building look and feel like a more open, welcoming space? And so what this funding allows for is a plan to do that. And so it's architectural services to come up with a plan of when you are addressing this section of the building and you're doing the windows and you're doing the doors or the walkways, do it in this way, right? And so that's what this is doing. Because we have been so heavy in sort of more mechanical upgrades right now, we just haven't touched on this yet. But it is something that I think is worthwhile, and we're just not quite there yet.
And that as well as approved funding, Casey, for that?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. And then this last one, I have to get an update from Dan on this. This is to tie in a rooftop units into the building management system at the high school. It's really sort of the last piece of that. I think, Joy, you were part of facilities when they did the BMS project, I think. And I think there was one component that was left out. This is to tie in that last piece of it. So I'll find out from Dan sort of where we are with this one, but we need to get moving on that one. That's the high school. Any questions?
No.
All right. And we're going to get to Wisconsin.
Gym floor.
What's that?
Wisconsin gym floor.
Oh, did you want to go over the Wisconsin capital projects? Those were just the high school capital.
Oh, that's right. That was just a high school. Yeah.
Very long. I'm sorry. A lot of them are duplicative because a lot of like the boilers and the roofs and stuff. I won't go into detail because the same thing I said for the high school applies to Wisconsin. But I can just go quickly through Wisconsin. The projects that were completed: cafeteria floor, the boiler, and the server upgrade. There is a little bit of cash capital remaining for security upgrades there, which again, we have a plan for. This is the engineering design for the air conditioning, the roofs, same thing. Carpeting, the main office and the conference room in the main office at Wisconsin is going to be replaced this summer. And our thinking is I need to get a little bit closer to see where we are with our maintenance budget, but I'd also like to paint that area as well before the new carpeting goes down, just get a fresh coat of paint so that whole space is new. Adding domestic water service to Wisconsin, that's a combined project at this point with the town. Greg Dombowski has been working on securing the grant from the state for that. Because it does affect houses along Wisconsin Road too. So it's really, a school and town project at this point, but that is underway. The gym floor we'll talk about a little separately. The entryway redesign that we plan on using drip for. And so that would be redoing the flooring there. We have to level it because we want to move actually the SRO's office into that large entryway at Wisconsin, taking up, just a section of it. But we really thought that's really an ideal place for the SRO. We just need to make sure that there's, we may have to add some ducting to ensure that there's air conditioning in the space. There is a unit ventilator for heat in the space. We might have to add some receptacles for electric. But that's a project that we intend to use DRIP funding for. Ceiling tiles, again, goes with the roofs. We also have that architectural services funding, just like we had at BHS for the fenestration, which is Caroline, you might know what that means. Fenestration is like the layout, right, of windows and doors and stuff on a building. And then these unit ventilators, there's no intention of, revamping the entire HVAC heating system at Wisconsin. We just replaced the boiler. There's really much, fewer issues with heat in that building. And so we do have these unit ventilators and rooftop units that we do need to put out to bid to get these projects underway. They're not started yet, but they are in my list of RFPs to get done in the next couple weeks. And that's pretty much all of it. So that's capital. Any questions?
You're gonna send me all those notes, right? Oh, you'll put it onto the minutes?
Sure. Yes, absolutely. I can even just yes. Yeah. Well, I can have this as a report style.
Yeah, I was gonna say, why don't we just attach that as like a PDF report if that's okay?
Exactly.
Or,
Link it in, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, so discussion of Wisconsin gym floor capital project.
All right, so this one, we did speak with representatives of the NBC on this project because we have about $155,000 allocated, a little bit under that allocated, and we wanted some feedback on what kind of flooring should we be thinking of for this space. The recommendation was to first get environmental testing done so that we know, is it something that can be easily pulled up or should it be left in place? And the testing came back clear of asbestos, no worries there. It does have elevated mercury underneath the system. So we do want to keep the flooring intact. We don't want to have to, pull that existing flooring out and remediate. That would be very costly. And there are very cost-effective ways to put in a new gym floor without doing that. So the suggestion is a poured in place athletic floor system. And so I'm developing an RFP for that as well. And it's basically a seamless. So there's no seams to it. And it encapsulates, what's underneath it, fully. And then it provides a really nice floor system for athletics. So again, I drafted the RFP, gonna share it internally here first, and then share it with the folks over at the NBC and get their input, and then get that RFP released. Both floors, the small gym and the large gym, do need to be replaced, but the roof over the large gym also needs to be replaced first. And so the timing of this is really going to depend on when we think we can get that roof replaced, because we certainly don't want to put a brand new floor under a roof that is leaking. And I don't know that it makes sense to do the small gym and then have a vendor come back at another time for another phase to do the larger gym. We probably would have, efficiencies in scale and costs if we could do them all at the same time. But again, we'll figure all that out as we, really develop that RFP. And again, I want to get the NBC's input on their thoughts on that. But that's where we are with that. And originally, when I had put this on the agenda, I thought we were going to be talking about, do we want to do a wood floor? Do we want to do, but because of the testing that came back, the recommendation really was just do the poured system. It's much more cost effective that way, and you get a good product out of it. Any questions there? Yeah.
I have a question. I have always lots of questions. What is, you may not know the answers, but my questions would be, what is the longevity of it and what is the maintenance of something like that?
I will get those answers. From what I've read,
if we're talking about pouring over the floor or, you know, operating over the floor, which certainly whatever recommendations are made follow, that would be my question, right? Do we in 10 years have to then worry about what are we going to put on top of that?
Right.
So,
right. That's a great question. Yep. I will get those answers.
Thanks.
Okay, discussion of fencing at CLES.
Stephen, do you want to start on that one or do you want me to?
No, absolutely. I can see. Yep. Can everyone hear me okay? Good. So, yeah, so I think maybe a year or so ago, maybe a little bit more, I learned that there was a review and a conversation about fencing around CLES. And what we're talking about primarily is the back end area. So when you go behind CLES, you'll find on the right side of it, looking at the front of the school, once you get into the behind, you'll see kind of a basketball court area, an upper level playground. And then as you keep walking around, you come to a play area that's more for our younger students. And then that continues all the way around back up into the front on the left-hand side of the building as you're looking at the building. So that whole area behind it is surrounded by woods. And a couple of things happen. Number one, we lose a lot of balls in those woods. They're great at attracting balls and not repelling them back to us. But that's not the biggest reason. We do sometimes have opportunities. There's a walking trail there, so there's opportunities for pedestrians or residents or folks just in the area to come kind of through during the school day. And we just want to make sure that for safety and security purposes, that we have something that would not allow anything in to the school area when students are in school. Equally, we want to be able to maintain and keep students in. That's very important as well. So we are looking at fencing in that whole back area. They can do a nice job of tying it into a little bit of fencing that already exists on the far left-hand side, and then bringing it all the way around and then around into the front on the right-hand side. So that way it would be a nice contained area. It would be black, so you really wouldn't see it that much, which is nice. It kind of blends in, or you wouldn't see it hard off of the woods that are in the area. And it would be approximately 6 feet tall, so it wouldn't be overwhelming, but tall enough where, folks, no one can really jump over it quickly. A 4-foot fence, you might be able to do that with. And there would be appropriate gates where they're necessary. So that way we would be able to exit or enter for, safety purposes. But we would also be able to control the locking of those gates if needed too. So the idea is, again, for safety and security, that we would fence that whole area. I think earlier in what Casey was sharing with you, we have an allocation of money that we can use for this purpose, and we would like to use it to do that. We did receive an updated quote. The one that we did get approximately a year ago was for a 4-foot fence for this whole area that I'm describing. I'll be honest, I've walked the whole area. I've been out there. I went out there with the principal. I know Casey's been out there before in speaking with Dan, our supervisor, and also the SRO that works at CLES. We feel like a 6-foot fence would be more appropriate and meet the needs more long term. And so for that purpose, we asked for another quote that would be the same amount of area and footage, but at the 6-foot level, and we did receive that quote. So we would love to move forward with that project. We think it's a really important one, and it's something I think we could get done in a fairly quick, reasonable amount of time, this summer specifically. So that way it would be available. I think the light is turned off in my office, and that's kind of awkward. So I don't know if something that's changed, but there it is.
Is that like a chain link fence, or is it?
It would be a chain link fence. Yeah. Yep.
Okay. What was the quote? I came in.
Okay, so do you have that? I don't have
You
that.
have that. I do. I can share it actually. We between the funds that we have.
Enclosed in the back. You know what I mean? Like
Say that again?
it would just be enclosed for the back, not coming.
Correct. Yes, it wouldn't come anywhere around front. You wouldn't even be able to see it from up.
Okay.
Well, I guess I don't want to say that inaccurately. I guess if you're looking at the school all the way to the left-hand side of the school,
Mhm.
you might be able to see the part that would run along the lower playground, the younger playground. You may be able to see a little small portion of it there. Again, it will be black, so it will blend in much better than another color would. Yeah.
Yep.
What's the 6GA? And
So
then
that's the gauge of the actual chain link itself, like how thick the chain link is. We would go with the 9 gauge, the lesser expensive one. It would be fine. It still will last, the length of time that we need. You go with the 6 gauge more when you're thinking about like a backstop, maybe. When you're thinking about something that will have to take a little bit of a beating. And this wouldn't. This isn't something we're going to allow kids to climb and use or have balls thrown against it.
Okay.
Like baseballs. I mean, kickballs might hit it, but that wouldn't do anything.
Is this something that's currently funded or no? Sorry, I missed that.
Great question, Caroline. So
Funding, you said we have available funds, so where is it coming from?
yep, there's $33,236 remaining in the capital projects for security.
Mm-hmm.
And so we would look to you to finish up those projects with this fencing. We would be $4,164 short. Also important to note, this is one quote that we got because this is over the threshold. We do have to get competitive pricing for it, but at least we know it won't be more than this. And so we're about $4,100 short, which we will find $4,100 in the budget to cover that little overage. But the vast majority of it would come from those capital projects, and that would be good too, because then we would spend down those projects and get those off the books. So.
And it has to be used for safety and security.
Correct.
And this wasn't originally planned at the school? Like what was the thought when the school was built? I mean, we knew there was going to be 1,200 kids in the backyard.
I don't know. I wasn't part of.
I'm just curious. I'm not trying to be cynical or accusatory. I just meant what was there a vision for the outdoor space? I think.
Caroline,
I don't know. Just curious.
Yeah, what I learned, I think, in my outdoor walkthrough of CLES, I've done a couple of indoor ones now, but my outdoor one. Those are more recent, and what I've learned is there were a lot of give and takes, I think, when it came to the outdoors.
Okay.
And unfortunately, I think there will be more work that we'll need to look at for the outdoors there in the future. But first and foremost, let's focus on safety, and that's what this would do. And then we can focus on maybe appropriate play areas for kids, because that's the next thing that's very concerning to me.
I would agree, having 2 children there.
Yeah. So,
okay.
so
I was just curious.
I think we have a lot more to talk about, though, regarding the facilities there for the outdoors, and I'm, looking forward to those conversations.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thanks.
So, can I just ask a logistical question, kind of newer to the processes here. So, do we have to go to the full board to vote for this project moving forward? and then we go out to bid for it? Do we go out to bid first and bring some bids to the board? Does it have to even require a board vote because we already have allocated money for safety and security? If I just not sure how in Brookfield we manage the finances here that have been allocated for this type of work.
So I assume since there's an overage, right, we have to, as the committee, we have to make a recommendation to the board. Is that correct, Casey?
So the overage, so I'm not sure, to be honest with you, Joy, because I think we can spend down those capital funds, and you know the remaining amount, the $4,100. And again, when we go out for competitive bidding, I mean $4,100 could easily be, you know, not needed. You know, I'm not sure, but that would probably be a budget transfer. That's how the board approval would work and something like that. If it would be, if it would have to come from, you know, some equipment line or something in the budget. I know that when we spent some funds out of this project last year, I think we added some security cameras and, you know, other safety and security measures that didn't go to the board. To your point, Joy, because this project might be a little bit over those, you know, the funding threshold of the capital projects. You know, it's really the board's discretion, I think, how you want to handle that.
Well, I'd be more comfortable if we have a clear understanding of what's going to fund the overage or where it's coming from. If we can get maybe clarification on that, and then we can maybe before Wednesday next week, and then put it on the agenda.
Sure.
Well, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I heard you're going to get a couple more bids, and so we might not even need an overage for this project, depending on if someone comes in lower with, you know, similar quality. I do agree with Joy. I think in the guise of transparency, I definitely think this should come before the board. But maybe we wait, Joy, to see if we even need an overage potential.
Sure.
You know, when looking at, make a decision as a committee on which, you know, or, you know, support which, you know, vendor we go with, and then at that point bring it to the board for, you know, awareness or vote. I'm not sure which one, honestly.
Yeah, that's all I was questioning. I definitely think it should go to the board for awareness and absolutely, but I didn't know if it required vote or not at some point.
Yeah, I mean, we can make a recommendation. I think it's good practice.
Yeah,
But yeah, it's a valid point. Wait for the quotes to come in.
Okay.
You know, the alternative to that, in case, you know, if we don't want to, if we wait for the quotes to come in, I'm just thinking, just timing wise, right, of board meetings and approvals and things. If the board wanted to authorize, you know, the installation of the fencing at CLES, and to use the security capital money to complete that project, with any overage not to exceed, you know, $4,200 to be identified through operating or something like that, right? Like if you're comfortable with that, that way then the superintendent has, you know, knows that the board is supportive of the project at least, and we can move forward when we get the quotes. But it's, again, it's really, it's up to you guys.
Yeah, I mean, I don't.
Because you're just wondering because of the timing, because if we wait much longer, it's going to become like May and later than that.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, if you wanted to green light the project itself, right, to say, yes, we support the installation of the fencing, and we support using the capital funding that we have for it, and as long as it doesn't, you know, exceed an additional $4,200, then, you know, go for it. Yeah, that type of thing. But if you want to wait for the exact number too, that's also well within your purview.
I guess I would feel more comfortable waiting because there's no sense of urgency. I know, well, safety is, there's always urgency with safety, but I have no problems with the project. We can always call a special meeting, a really quick special meeting too.
Okay.
Good. Perfect.
Was that it for the fencing? Okay.
Yes.
All right. Review of CLES facility items.
Yes. Do you want to start this or do you want me to? Up to you.
As Casey's pulling this up, she really did an amazing job putting a comprehensive list of the issues that we've been seeing at CLES, and just wanted to make folks aware of. So you will see that not only did this come to me, but then I absolutely made certain that it was forwarded to NBC as well as Steve Dunn, just so they were aware of some of the concerns that are occurring at CLES. So, Casey, I'll let you kind of speak to the specific ones if you're okay with that, but we'll collectively answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Yeah, and the purpose of this was really because, as you know, even in the facilities committee, I have brought updates to you about, you remember the DOAU air handler units, right? And we thought we had the fix. ABS was here. They made the change. We were told that that was going to be it. And then the next month, I think it was, I was reporting, oh, there's still an issue. That wasn't actually the solution. And so what we found, and Stephen and I talking, you know, our concern is, or our questioning, I guess, or wondering is just, we want to make sure that these are truly standalone issues that we should be dealing with internally, or alternatively, are they more systemic issues that really the building project lead members need to be getting involved with to see if this is a more systemic problem. And so,
and Casey, if I could just chime in there, equally, I would say, we also have been talking about a couple of things that have happened in the past, right, that still kind of rear their head, as well as things that are current and ongoing. And we just wanted one place where everything was captured. Because sometimes it's like, here's an update, there's an update, then a few months go by and here's something, and there's not that one place that we go back to that says, you know, this is where it all is. These are the current issues. They still need to be resolved. We're not sure how or where or who's going to do that, but we need guidance on this because we know that building is still in, you know, limbo with who owns it and some things going on, right? So,
exactly.
Sorry. Thank you, Casey.
Yeah, this is not to say, you know, we have all these issues and where are people? Like this was really just for clarity. Absolutely. And a focused, you know, understanding of what we're seeing so that we can get all the appropriate people involved to address them. That's all.
And people have been great helping out so far.
Absolutely.
So it's been wonderful.
Is there like a document that we can have, like a running document where we see like all the correspondence and incidences, or, you know, kind of like tracking?
Correspondence like between,
You know, for this specific project, right? Or this air handler issue. To really understand is this, like you said, is this a standalone issue that we can deal with in-house, or?
well, I think what this document will do, so let me walk you through sort of the layout of this, and maybe that will help frame an answer to that question, Joy. So what I've done here is any issue that we've either just recently identified, and I want to be really clear, a couple of these issues are literally brand new as of last week. So this is not to say, you know, we've been, you know, screaming from the rooftops about issues with CLES for all this time and nobody's done anything. That is not the messaging here. Because like I said, some of the issues with the roof leak and some water under a DOAU is brand new as of last week. But CO2 levels in classrooms, that became an issue in early December, where teachers were becoming concerned. As you recall, there's a sensor in every classroom that actually measures the CO2 levels. And we found that in the same wing, you could have one classroom that was reading completely normal levels, and then the classroom right across the hall that is being fed by the exact same air handler units. Everything is the same. would have, ppms that are, twice as high with the same level of activity. And so this was not really making sense. So here it tells you the actions that have been taken to address this. And so ABS did come out. ABS is our sort of the system, the technology people that do the programming for the system. They conducted an assessment over winter break, and they found that multiple sensors had to be recalibrated. I do have the report here. I'm not good. Oh, it does pull up. Good. I thought it would kick me out of that screen, but it does. It did show several areas that, so this is prior to recalibration and this is after recalibration. So here was reading, 789 parts per ppms, and after recalibration, it was much better, well within normal range at 490. So some of the sensors actually needed to be completely replaced. This one was reading 1550, and it's a bad sensor. It needs to be replaced. So we found that was reassuring. And I want to be really clear about what we're finding with these sensors. They are very, very. Oops, I lost the whole thing. They're very, very sensitive, to the point where you can see in classrooms charts of, every hour what the reading is for the CO2 monitors. And there's a nice bar graph that goes up and it spikes at 1,200 parts per million, and then it comes quickly back down. And when you look at those charts compared to the schedule of that class, all of those spikes in the classroom are when the students are lining up at the door to leave the room. So all the students are congregated right by that sensor, and it's picking up all the additional CO2. And so then they leave and it immediately comes right back down. And so the system is doing what it needs to do. Those sensors are so sensitive, you can actually go over to it and blow on it and it will, I tested it yesterday and it rose right up. And so just want to caution that. But so they were recalibrated, and that was, made things look much more in line you would expect to see throughout the wing. And I lost my memo, so I have to find it again. Okay. Okay. So those are the CO2 levels. And that one we think is, and then we do have some data here. There are still some folks that are saying that their levels are high. I don't know if it's just, this is all, again, informational. So this is just the data that we have. So we're tracking that. Freeze-stat alarms. There was also, this was reported to Facilities Committee, that the freeze-stat alarms, which is an alarm in the DOAUs on the roof of the building, they have these sensors in them where if the outdoor temperature drops to a certain level, the alarm will go off and it will shut down the unit so that it doesn't, it prevents it from freezing. The sensors in these units were all located right where the vents open up to allow cold air in. So you open up the vent and the sensor is right there. And so it's getting hit right there with that cold air in that one spot. But the air over here and this other part of the unit is not below freezing, right? And so what ABS did is that they came in and they replaced those sensors with it's like the way it was described to me, it's a longer sensor. And so it sort of snakes all around the unit to get a more accurate reading of the temperature within the whole unit. And so that is helping to prevent that freeze-stat alarm from going off. Because what happens is that alarm, sometimes those are going off every 15 minutes. And our maintenance staff would have to reset it to fire it back on, because once it goes off, the air stops, it stops feeding fresh air into the system. So we want to make sure that those are, unless it really is a true problem where they're freezing, we want to make sure that those are always running. Elevated classroom temperatures. We found numerous classrooms were reported to have elevated temperatures during winter months. Some classrooms getting, as warm as 78 to 80 degrees. what we found was, and through tracking, was that the conditions were most commonly observed following periods when classrooms were unoccupied, and the system temperatures were then allowed to drift up. So the system is smart enough to know the space is unoccupied. We don't have to work as hard to keep the temperatures down because it's not occupied. So it had like this swing of allowing the temperatures to rise. What would happen was once the spaces became reoccupied, the system was struggling to bring that temperature back down rapidly enough to provide a comfortable environment. And so the thermostat, the occupancy settings can be adjusted to reduce that limit, right? So it isn't allowed to swing as high when it becomes unoccupied. And we believe that that has had a positive impact. So a more recent one was an odor, and this is brand new. This isn't, again, we don't have the answers here. These are just observations of what we're seeing and how we're trying to address it. When the system is calling for air conditioning, it activates chillers in the system to cool the air. And we noticed that when those chillers were activated, there was an odor that permeated throughout various wings of the building. And so we contacted ABS, we contacted Train, which is the manufacturer of the units. And the recommendation was to clean these large wheels. They're like dehumidifying wheels, I think, within the unit. And so, gosh, Stephen, was it last week or the week before? I don't remember. It's all blending, but it was at least last week, if not the week before. Yes. It was within a few days of this initiating. Our maintenance crew was up there on the roof, going into every unit and cleaning them. Now, we had to shut the units down in order for this to happen, and so this had to take place when school was not in session, obviously, because we didn't, we wanted to make sure that the space was being supplied with the fresh air when it's occupied. So all of those units have been cleaned. We thought that alleviated the problem. And then yesterday there was a report of odors in the library and the upper office, as well as the makerspace room. I did go there. I did smell an odor, and actually there was reports of odors in other areas of the building. When I was there, I did not smell that anywhere except for the lower level of the library. The reports that we're getting is that it's like a moisture smell, but I didn't smell it like that at all. And again, everybody's senses are very different. But there was an issue there. So we don't know why that is happening, but again, the NBC is getting all hands on deck to get a team together to really go through this and look at it. As we were up there on the roof cleaning those DOAU wheels, the dehumidifying wheels, we noticed that there was water that was when our maintenance mechanic stepped on the lip between where the air handler is and the roof, water was coming out from underneath the unit, and that didn't seem right. And it was just this one unit that had that issue. Again, this is a brand new situation that we learned of last week. And so we're thinking that probably needs to be addressed. There were some flame failures in the boiler system. We do believe that those have been, replaced with different sensors that are needed. We think that these issues are addressed. There is a roof leak, unfortunately, in the workroom of the third grade teachers, and it has caused some damage to some ceiling tiles and some paint on the walls. So we are going to get the roofing contractors who installed the roof out. I think they're out of Massachusetts, but we have been in contact with them. They will be coming to assess that situation. This was before we had contact. This is no longer accurate. So so this will have to be updated. The alarm system in the building, the sensors that are in the classrooms are motion sensors. And anytime we had Siemens, who is the installer of the product, they said that those sensors are not ideal for that setting because they're very, very sensitive to light. So if those motion sensors are in an area where there's any windows, they're going to go off all the time. And they were going off frequently, you know, in the middle of the night, throughout the day. Well, not throughout the day because it's not armed, but in the middle of the night, we were, the PD was being dispatched frequently. And so now we put blinders on those and we shut down the motion sensors in the classrooms because it wasn't working for what we needed. And then these are just the considerations, right? As I said, this is not intended to say, you know, to place any blame or anything. In fact, you know, the NBC has been very, very responsive and helpful in trying to get answers for us and get the appropriate people looking at this. But we just want to make sure that the system's in place and the way it's been installed and designed is really the way it's working the way it's supposed to work and intended to work. So to be continued with all of those items until. Yep.
Regarding the alarm system, motion sensors. So which ones specifically? The ones in the hallways, the corridors?
In the classroom themselves.
Oh, in the classrooms. So yeah. You said they shut them off?
Yeah, because we can't, I mean, the PD was having to come out, you know, multiple times a night to address those. So Siemens has been out and they're going to make some recommendations for improvements on that.
Okay. Well, wow, that was a lot. Please tell me there's not more.
Not today. No, I mean, I think the important thing is I think we want you, the committee and the board to know that we are, and staff too, right? That share these concerns with the administration, that we do take them all very seriously. We are trying to get to the root cause of all of these issues. And this is how we're tracking it. So Joy, to your earlier point of like sort of tracking and documentation, you know, we can certainly use this as a launching point, right? And provide updates as we learn more so that we can really see, you know, that there's progress made on addressing some of these issues. I think that's something that Stephen and I would be happy to do.
Yeah, I guess like a document that we can kind of access at any time and see where it is. Like, is it in progress? You know, and what stage are we at with it? I guess, you know, really. So yeah, I took a lot of notes on the Google Doc, which I'll share with you, just to edit anything that I may have missed so that we can circle back around too with them.
Absolutely.
But yeah, no, I appreciate the transparency. I think that's really important. And I'm glad that, you know, the NBC has been really responsive and, you know, working with us because that's always been challenging too, right? They are our schools and our facilities. So we need a level of involvement.
Yes. I think, sorry.
No, I was just saying just because, you know, they're in charge of the project, but they're still our facilities, our buildings.
Yes, absolutely. And if there are things that really are now ours because they're out of warranty or the time has been, then we just need to know that. And I think we are operating with that understanding that even when some of the issues we had with the DOAUs, we were told by Train, this is out of warranty. Like this is on you to fix, right? And so and that is perfectly fine. I just want to make sure that there's no larger, you know, cause for concern that we should be aware of. And if these are issues that we just need to address as they come our way, then we will certainly do that, obviously. Yeah.
Okay. Is that all? That's it from CLES?
Yes.
The laundry list? Okay. All right. Any old business?
I don't have any.
Okay. Miscellaneous discussion? No? Okay. All right, then I'll adjourn the meeting at 6:14.
Perfect.
Thank you, Casey.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye,
you all.
guys.
Good
Happy Easter.
Good night.
Happy Easter.
Night.
night. Bye.